157. My stop loss is going to be 152. Just a small position for this lower price stock. And what I'm really watching is this hold of the 21 EMA and looking for this to make a move higher back up to the pre-market high at this point. Nice little move up there, a few cents, and then immediate pullback. I won't give this a lot of room if we can't push higher, just because in part two we've transitioned down here to weak bear on the TTM, excuse me, strong bear on the TTM, so I'm really watching close here. Yeah, I'll take that off right there. I'm gonna wait. I'd rather wait and see now. That was just a couple cents a share. I'd rather see if this is gonna switch, from strong bear to weak bear here on the histogram. I do like that it's holding the 21, so that's a good sign. But we've got still 2.5 minutes on the current 5-minute candle to see if there is going to be a 5-minute setup. And again, looking for that multi-time frame alignment. Pretty light day on the scanner thus far, just meaning that there aren't the low float top gainers list is pretty limited. There's the leading gainer on the low float is LUCY that I'm on right here, and it's only up 33%. So I'm just trying to kind of watch and see, does this histogram base out? Looks like it's trying to. So I'm gonna take another starter here at 158. Again, I'm assuming like a 153 kind of stop loss here, and I'll look to add if this starts to move up. So I added there, 159. Now we're getting a flip back. We're in a mid compression squeeze. Add there again. Bigger seller came in there. There's 160. You can see these sellers stack up just a little bit. And what I'm watching for is for this histogram to, continue to transition to weak bear and then move us higher. And I also am looking for, the hold of these EMAs, 821 and the VWAP. Really watching to see what this does here through this area. So we just started our first 5-minute candle. The high of the prior 5-minute candle is $1.60. So, at the break of $1.60, we'd be looking at first 5-minute candle to make a new high, which would give us some time frame alignment here with our 1-minute chart. I want to move up. So if we break that 160, I'll look to add again. Right here, I'm just waiting. Low of this candle is 154. And I'm playing much lighter on the size here, just because LUCY, it's not up a lot. And typically when we see these stocks up a larger percentage, we'll get a little bigger move on them. There's one there on the bid. Like I said, I'll cut this quick if we don't hold. And that's just part of, look, I'm going to assume that I'm wrong until proven otherwise. And I do need to give it enough space to move a little, but I also want to be cognizant of not risking more than I need to. And, 151 is 3 more cents away. On these lower price stocks, I don't like to give a lot of space, just because if they're going to move and they're going to push higher and other traders are seeing the setup that I think is there, then we should see, buying step in, more green on the level 2, and then we should see this push higher. There's 160 I'm going to add there, add it again. Now we're looking for push up through high day. I've added again, so now my average is 161. And we look to see if we can get a squeeze up through high of day, with this being the first 5-minute candle to make a new high. Still 2.5 minutes roughly on this 5-minute candle. $66, $67. And on the TTM, we're looking at this transition here, just watching to see, will we continue to get this flip to strong bull? That's a much smaller bearish histogram, which I do like the look of that when this stays small and we continue to proceed into this strong bull. There's a nice little pop up there. So I haven't taken any off yet. Now with my position, I can kind of assume a break even here, worst case scenario. And, 161 is right at the 80 EMA, so I'd like to hold it through here and see as we continue to get this momentum, will we see this histogram keep rising upward? This white arrow means that the MACD has now opened, which is can be a confirmation signal that we're having some moving average divergence here, or convergence divergence. That's not MACD, but so it can be a signal that we've got some more potential here. Like in all things with trading, there's no guarantees, of course. So you're trying to execute a strategy and follow probabilities with an open mindset of, if the stock's proven me right, then I want to stay in. And at this point, that's the mindset that I'm having right now. Is we've now just hit high of day. It is the leading gainer right now. It's up 43%. We just started a new 5-minute candle right up here near the high. So it'd be nice if we can see some continuation. And we've got these green trend candles that I'm working to be mindful of as well, and not exit too soon, and still protect myself on the downside with essentially a break-even mindset at this point. There's a nice little additional push there. I'm going to add 500 shares just because I think that's the right thing to do as we continue to grow this strong bull histogram. So my average cost now 162. We hit a new high and a little pullback there. Again, this is kind of this expect to be uncomfortable phase where I'm just trying to be conscientious of that we're still holding the ADMA, we're still strong bull on the TTM. Trying to hold that prior high, which was 168. That was the prior high of day breakout. And that would be a nice thing to see us hold and, again, continue to move higher. If we get to 175, then maybe we get to 185. This would be first 1-minute candle to make a new high right there at 171. So I'm going to add there again. That was just 500 share add. See if we can push up again. Right now, a little bit of a false breakout on that 1-minute candle. See, this 21 EMA holds and we can recover the 8. Still a minute and a half to go on the current 5-minute candle, which is red, and it's higher volume candle. I'm watching that over on my other charting screen here. So there's still 50 seconds to go on this 5-minute candle. It is higher volume. It's just a single 5-minute volume bar here, but it is almost as high volume as the prior green volume bar. There's a lot of so it's pretty well the same amount of volume, and it is a red bar right now. All right, that's the end of the 5-minute candle. Let's see what the new 5-minute candle does here. Will we get a 21 EMA hold? And right now it's looking like it wants to push back down to the VWAP. But this 21 EMA hold, and we get a flip back up into the 170s. Push off the 21 there. See if this will keep going. It'll pop up and pull back. It went up to 167. in LUCY, it is our leading gainer here on the low floats. Watching this move along the 21 here. Minute and a half, just over a minute and a half left on the 5-minute candle. So this low is 160, and that's essentially what I'm looking at right now. Is do we hold 160? I'm right at my break even. You can see small red here on my current position, 162 on the bid, and 3 cents on the bid. If this got down to 159, there it looks like we might continue to hold the 21 here. You can see that pivot just came in. So, again, I'm seeing this holding. It doesn't look super strong because we're not really getting that big kind of explosive move. But while it's holding support here, I want to continue to be in to see if this is, if other traders are seeing the same thing now. We see a little push up there, 167. A break of 167 would be another 5-minute candle to make a high there. See if these sellers got bought up. They did. I added 2 more times, and now my average is 163. And then kind of pull back. So, anyone that's short up here in the 170 area, obviously they've got, stop loss above high of day. I would have looked to see more covering in this push higher, but we're still seeing more selling come through. So I'm going to be out there. So I took that off. We broke the pivot. Again, this might recover, but because of my position size, ended up being a little larger loss there. But I don't want to be in if this is going to, push down really heavy. I'd rather get out and see if it'll give me another attempt. So I took another starter here on LUCY. Again, kind of watching this, weak bear transition here is what I'm looking for. Added there again at 170. That was added again. So now I'm in average cost 171. See if we can get a push up to 180 here. Nice to see a push up to 180, 185. See if this can break that 176 again. We're strong bull again on the TTM after the little flip here. So with that kind of initial push, we'll see if we get some consolidation here for a couple candles and then the next leg up. So still holding here, watching this 8 EMA, see if it'll hold. Just 3 seconds left on this 5-minute candle. It did form a topping tail here. It's a green 5-minute candle, but it did form a little bit of a topping tail. Switch to that really quick so you can just see it here. This is what I'm talking about. It closed higher, but it's got this kind of longer topping wick, so something to just be mindful of on the 5-minute. See if we can get this next leg up here. TTM still strong bull. Momentum still positive. But we're really, hit that 170, in this case 171, and you just kind of get that pullback selling pressure. Again, if this will hold to 21 and we can get a push back up above 172, maybe we'll look at another high day push. About 45 seconds left on this 5-minute candle that I'm watching on the other chart. So, we just keep holding this 167 here, so I'm just sitting tight in my position and watching, I really don't want to see it break that 167 and press down, so I'm being mindful of that and also trying to be conscientious that, hey, we're holding the 21 and just being patient, just trying to be patient and, not get too excited about moves either way, but recognize where I'm at and also know my stop loss and where I need to exit. So the 5-minute candle that just closed, its high is 171, which is right where we're at right now. And, it does look like a little bit of a bull flag on the current 5-minute chart. We're getting some, flip back on momentum. It'd be really nice to see this, squeeze. There's a push up there. My level 2 is not really responding here. There we go. Let it catch up. Again, this is just simulator. Make sure I highlight that. This is a simulator. So good practice here. Bumping its head off of the pre-market high. There's a high 177. Run a little bit of a window up to 202, but there's a potential window up to 202 based upon the daily chart. There's 177. Some sellers stacked there. Kind of interesting to note we're in a mid-compression squeeze down here with these three red dots with our EMAs lined out. Generally, that's a pretty high percentage opportunity for a move to the upside. You know, you never know how far the move is going to go to the upside, but that generally tends to work out to the upside. So there's 180. Just started a new 5-minute candle. And I'm still in, you know, my full position here. We've got our green trend candles here. We've hit some new highs up at 180. Mid compression squeeze. I'd be looking for this to continue to resolve higher here. Just continuing to sit tight here in this position. This mid compression squeeze looks like it's trying to resolve here. Really, it'd be nice to see this get a push right into the open, right up near that or above, near or above ideally, above the pre-market high. See if we can get some continuation with buyers into the market open. See these sellers pop up here. 38,000, 40,000 share sellers at 177. 24,000 share seller. Looks like they're kind of getting bought up. 22,000. There we go. It's 178. See if we can get the next leg up to 179. There's 179. There's 180. Big sellers there. 40,000, 30,000 shares. They're getting bought up a little bit here. There's a nice push. 187, 189. And right back down. I'm going to take half off there. Lock that in. So I'm out half at 182. Now watching to see what happens here. It was a nice push into the open. I'm going to take another half off there at 180, or another quarter at 185. So average cost 174, we're at 187 right now. Let's see if we can keep getting a move higher here. 188, I'm going to take another 500 off there. Took another 500, so I've got 2,900 shares left here. 188. 500 off there at 186. Or sorry, I added 500, I should say. Now my average cost 176. There's 190, 92, 93 good. See if we get a push up to 2. A lot of sellers there at 193. 94. I'm going to put an order out there to sell at 193. If we get the dip bot up here. Took 500 off there at 187. Average cost is now 176, which is back at the 21 EMA. So I'm kind of looking at this extension above the EMAs. Given that this is a lower price stock, I would consider this, still extended up here. And so I'm not opposed to taking some off the table on this price extension. I've got a sell order there at 193. There's 190. Just watching, we're still holding that 8 EMA here. Took 500 more off there at 187. An average cost right now is 176. I still have this order out at 193 to take 500 more off. Now, we can hold the 8. Might actually be inclined to add back on the first 1 minute candle to make a new high, given this new breakout, and we're above pre-market high, so that would actually be an add back at like 191. There's 185. We did come into the ADMA, added there, just 500 shares. Nothing huge. Just took a little add back on this first 1 minute candle. See what this does. My average cost now is 179. And basically at this point, I'd kind of be assuming a 184. Well, this pivot right here is 183 on the low, so probably like a 182 stop loss is what I'd be looking at here. I do have this 500 share limit order out for sale still at 193, which I'm happy with. That's right near. Okay, so that just got taken out. Now my average cost is 180. This does look like it's going to maybe give us a little move higher. It's an interesting, sometimes think or swim, like Charles Schwab does that. At times there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason to that, but I'm going to take half more off there. That was at 183. Keep in mind, like this wick, sometimes they have these weird wicks that get drawn. Doesn't happen often, but at times. And I'm going to take the rest off right there, just given that we're really not looking very strong. This kind of ran up right near high day, double topped at that 194. Now, this candle's not closed. There's still 4 seconds left, but when I see that come in and I'm a little extended, I'd rather lighten up. So the rest of that I took out at 184 and just close that position off. So kind of looking to see what this is going to do, if anything here. But not a bad move. I think my average cost was 171. And yeah, I had to hold through some of this just sideways movement here. Like I said, average cost was 171. And then, kind of staying uncomfortable through this hold. And then as we get this price extension, I will say I thought this might push right up to 2. I got close, but I thought this might push up to 2 and give us an actual test of the $2 level. Given the way these candles looked at the market open. Now we're getting some more selling pressure here, but I thought we might see that push up. And then this did give us a 1 minute candle to make a new high right there at 191, which you saw my ad at 500. And then it stalled out here. I did have a limit order to sell 500 at 193, which that went through and this stalled out. And then as we, this started looking really weak, it ran up here and bumped its head and then just started pulling back. And I'd rather take that as kind of my exit signal than sitting and, wondering what's going to happen next. I'd rather just be proactive, take my exit there, and then look to see if there's another setup. Kind of looking to see what else is going off on the scanner. MNTS. No, not super interested in MNTS right there. AZI is a little more interesting. 158 was the high yesterday. If I zoom out just a little bit, you can see that right there. I guess it was 153. Yeah, 153 yesterday for the high. Here at the market open, we've hit 162. 450. You know, I would feel like my stop loss needed to be down here in the 430s, maybe 438. I don't know. I'm not super interested in that. Another one going off on the scanner, NVVE. Go take a look at that. It's a nice move on NVVE. No news, but that's a strong move right off the market open. $1 a share. But again, I mean, you don't, and you're never going to know that that's going to happen. You're never going to know anything's going to happen in the market. You're just trying to use probabilities. And at the time, trading LUCY, it was the leading gainer for low float. And, I wasn't looking to abandon that trade, given that it was the leading gainer, to come trade this and watch this. And I'm looking at it on my other charts, and, it's had a nice move, obviously. the 200s clear up at $100 a share. So you got plenty of room to the 200. 385 is the 20 EMA. So it's bumping, and that's on the daily. 385 is the 20 EMA on the daily. So it's kind of bumped its head right off of that. Zoom in a little bit more here. But it's bumping its head off of that a little bit. NVBE, AZI is pulled back. AZI was another one I was watching here. So, that's just rough. Like, if you get in there, and this is where you just have to be willing to keep your stops kind of tight. I mean, if you were looking at this mid-compression squeeze here and you had the pullback, maybe here and even around 440 at the ADMA, you could take a stab. But then you would just have to know that, 428, you got to be out, because then this thing just nukes. And it's tough because obviously, again, you never know what's going to happen. You don't have to know, but it's important to play kind of some probabilities. And when these candles can't get back up and hold above 450, you had one candle close right at 450 and then just the move downward. So LUCY kind of moved lower back to what my break even would have been, which was 171. NVVE has had one pullback, kind of a little false breakout there. We'll see where that candle, I don't know where that candle will resolve. MNTS moving sideways here. So overall, just a much lighter day. And, our leading NVVE is now the leading low float gainer, and it's up 54%. I mean, which is obviously, it's something, it's just not a lot. So it just speaks to the really slow nature that it's been for the last couple months in the small cap. But if we're strategic and we take our positions correctly, then there's still some good opportunities. That's an $800 day. I probably won't trade anything else. I do see this recovering potentially here, potentially recapturing the pre-market high. With NVVE pulling back now, LUCY is back on the top gainer list for low float. But when I go down and look at the histogram, and I'm kind of converting to strong bear here, similar to this region when you're strong bear, I want to see this flipping back to weak bear. And, even though it's strong bear, I do like that the price is moving higher, so that's a good sign. And, if we could recapture the pre-market high, there might be something there. Right now my 8 is still under my 21, so I'm not a fan of that. Again, I'd much rather see price action line out like this, where you get these these EMAs stacked correctly. Right now we're in a little bit of a sideways here. NVVE pushing back up to 350. But this just isn't a trade that I think is good for me. With, the only way I would be interested in this is if I had a position clear down here at 278 and I've been adding up through 3, and if I had an average cost at about 310, then 1, 2, 3, this is my candle to make a new high. I'd actually probably be selling some position here at 350, just because this couldn't regain 350 and we couldn't hold 350 after this first candle. I'd actually probably looking to lighten up my position with an average cost of around 310 potentially, not be taking a starter here, just because I feel like this is extended, with the EMAs being really far apart. So, that wouldn't be this was not the cue for me, at least for my style, to be taking a trade here. Now, if somebody wanted to take a trade, I wouldn't necessarily fault them. This low's 316. If that's your pivot low, you just got to try to get something that's low risk and see if if the move is going to prove you correct. We can pop back to LUCY. Looks like it's back above pre-market high here. So LUCY, it's got this flip on the histogram, and this could catch some short sellers by surprise here, and there's enough buying interest that comes in, they could have a quick squeeze up to high day with shorts covering. Seller stack up there at 185, 32, 30, 30, 90,000 shares of selling there. You got the buyer stacked a little bit, 183. There's the sellers again. Oh, they bought up the sellers. The buyers bought up the sellers up to the next price level, 187. So, this thing keeps moving higher here. So just gonna sit tight here and watch. It is good that it's above its pre-market high. I think maybe if I was gonna do anything, I'd look for a pullback to 180, and probably be risking like 3 cents, down or 4 cents down to 176. But this keeps pushing up. I mean, you had two green candles pull back. Oh man, look at that. That was a nice pop up to high day. So that's shorts covering right there. You know, the shorts have their stop losses right up in here, and when you get that buying pressure, 186, and you get enough shorts covering, you're going to get that quick squeeze up like that, and right up to that $2 test. And so you got to assume there's probably some other shorts stacked up there just above 194, maybe 202, 203. If they're in high day or in the 192, they might be risking 6 to 10 cents depending on their position size. You don't know everyone's risk tolerance, of course, but it's reasonable to anticipate that you're going to have short sellers stacked up at that high day number. So if you can get enough buying pressure for longs that buy up those short positions and you get that cover, then you can get those big spikes. We saw one yesterday in AZI too, and I was actually in AZI when that happened, and it happened so fast. I didn't even take any off, and the stock went from about 330 to 380 in just a flash. My average cost was 315, and yet I didn't take any off the table. And I looked at that trade a little bit more yesterday. In hindsight, I definitely could have traded that better. And so like on this flash right here, as soon as this candle closed at 194, I would have been offloading some just to protect myself. If I had this entry at 186, I would have kind of taken my 8 cents on at least half a position, and then I would have assumed break even on the rest. So I think that's important to be mindful of. And now I'm not going to take anything on the 21 here because you had this spike and now this pullback, and I don't feel like that's a great quality setup for me. Um, just because typically if you're going to get that spike up, you'd want to see this hold the prior high day at 194, and then you get more buying pressure coming in and pushing up above $2 a share. But since this literally bumped its head off and then pulled back like that, I would not be buying at the 21 EMA on this. Watching the price action here, it's just too much selling. This happened. You had a bunch of shorts cover, and then when it closes right at the prior high day at 194, shorts are coming back into that, and anybody that's long back here from 176, they're now taking an exit too. So you're just getting extra pressure to the downside. At least that's my interpretation of that and kind of what I watched there. So I think I'm going to be done for the day. It's coming up on 7 o'clock Pacific time. Um, Traded one stock up $800. I'll give my recap. It'll be out there on YouTube. And while we're at it, I'll pull up my metrics here for my performance metrics. And this is holding. Actually, now this is kind of interesting. So this has gotten into a mid compression squeeze here, and we're holding the pre-market high. So that's a little intriguing. But I still don't. I just still don't love like this pattern. I like this is a nice cup. And then let's talk hypothetically. If this had been a cup, and then this closed at 194, and you got like a couple of candles sideways here around 194, which would be that little handle piece of a cup, and then a handle coming out here. Then at that point, if you get a handle something like this, where you're getting a couple of kind of sideways candles or something similar to that, then I could maybe be interested, because with this cup and handle formation, you'll often get resolution to the upside on the handle. And for me, I'd say, okay, if I can buy in the 190s with a really tight stop loss like 187, then maybe I get a push up to 2 again, 10 cents a share for a 3-cent loss. It's not a huge position, but the market's been lighter, and so you just kind of have to play that now. But I do still think this is interesting here at a mid compression squeeze. But given this really sharp pullback, probably not something for me. So here's my metrics. As I mentioned yesterday, I had this red day. When we go back and look, of these last four, this is my bigger one. Not in love with that. The market was just really, really slow yesterday. Well, I should say a lot of stocks moved, but it was kind of just the pop and drop, and I was in a number of those and tried a few different stocks a couple times and kept my losses small. But I traded 7 different stocks, and when you have $300 to $400 loss on each, it adds up pretty quick. So a little larger loss today here. Prior day had been a nice gain. Today, Wednesday, again back to my trading panel here, up 805. So that essentially nearly puts me back green on the week. Still got a couple of trading days left in the week to work on ending the week green with my 805 today. January will actually be up just under 1,000 still. So again, working hard to string together these consistent green weeks, pushing to not have any one red day like in these big red days, but not to have any one red day ruin the week, because I want to keep that consistency. And that's critical, because if I can keep that consistency, then what we're looking at is we're coming into the profit trifecta here on these metrics, and I'm wanting, I need to keep myself up into this professional trader scoring range. And you can see, last week, 6 weeks of consistency. This was last week. Win percent last week was 71%. Profit to loss ratio was 2 to 1. The week prior, profit to loss ratio was $1.12 for a dollar. 3 weeks ago, $1.73 for a dollar of loss. And so I'm really working hard to make sure I keep this profit trifecta score high by focusing on A+ quality setups, not getting overextended, adding to my winners. I think that's been a big it's been a key step to really increasing that profit to loss ratio is adding to those winners and then keeping my losers smaller. So again, there's kind of a little curl pattern going on with this, but I think with where I'm at and as low as the market's been, yeah, this may shoot up here and get back up to the 194. But again, I still think you're just gonna there'll be so many sellers stacked up here. And look, I could be wrong. Like there might not be any sellers at all, and there's enough buying pressure to come in and buy up anybody that is selling shares up here, and you get that move higher. But I think with the way the day's been, even LUCY right now we're only up 50, almost 57%, and that's just not. I mean, we've had days that you've seen you've seen a stock up 700-800%. Those are stocks that are definitely on people's radar, and even on a stock that's up 100%, that's definitely on somebody's radar. I think LUCY is getting some movement here just because it is the top gainer, and it's flipping back and forth between NVVE and LUCY as far as the top gainer. So, again, a little kind of curl pattern here up to 350, but lots of decline on the TTM. You are in a mid compression squeeze, but lower trend, and that's to be assumed. People that were in back here adding, they're taking profits now. You're getting some slowdown. So I just think for me and for where I'm at on the day, along with how the market is overall, just one stock traded today, traded a couple times, and then done for the day. So signing off here. I'll post my recap to YouTube. Hope you enjoyed this live stream. Hope you enjoyed this recording of my practice in the simulator. As always, I definitely encourage you to utilize the simulator. Dial in your metrics. The market will be here for you. Push yourself in those areas that you're struggling. We all struggle. We have red days. I would argue Ross Cameron's one of the best day traders in the world, and he still has red days. And it doesn't mean that he's done anything wrong for his strategy. It's just that's part of trading. Is you're gonna have days that are gonna be red. So, but if you find yourself consistently red, then there's something that's coming back to your strategy that you can work on and push yourself to improve. So, as always, I wish you all the best of luck. Stay safe out there with your trades and push yourself in those areas that you're struggling. Take care.